Well, you saw in our program that our Capstone Leadership Lecture is an opportunity for you to learn about Mortarboard's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Toolkit and from the members of our standing DEI committee. You'll also find out how all of us, collegiate leaders and members, can communicate easily and quickly and stay connected with a session led by Student Representative at Large Kayla Miner and former Student Representative Brendan Wall. They have a great presentation planned for us. At the end of this hour together, you'll find out about Mortarboard's new brand and how it relates to you from the great branding committee. So first, I'm pleased to introduce the chair of the Standing Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Candy Hironako-Pitts. Candy was an award-winning chapter advisor and holds the title of Section Coordinator Emerita. She accepted the appointment as chair of the Standing Committee just 1 year ago as the National Council enacted our strategic plan and focused deliberately on the equity parts of our purpose. Candy, thank you for you and your great committee for your work. You're transforming our society.
Thanks, Katie, for this great opportunity to work for Mortarboard in this really significant and very important way. And I have to say congrats to you again as our new president. We have been focusing on two aspects of Mortarboard's purpose. First, emphasizing the advancement of the status of women, and two, promoting equal opportunities for all peoples. As soon as our committee was formed last year, we realized we needed to get a baseline information of what our membership entailed. So we created a diversity, equity, and inclusion survey and released it to about 40,000 members for whom we had email addresses. We got a response of about 950, and we were delighted from this. But also at this point, we were able to sort of get a snapshot of what our membership looked like through the years. There were some interesting things we learned, which will probably be no surprise to you. One, the longer a member was initiated, the more likely, or the longer ago a member was initiated, the more likely it is that they were a woman and were Caucasian. And of course, you know that Mortarboard was an all-women society before 1975. Two, more recently, members are more likely to indicate a wider range of ethnicities and identities. And three, while we are more diverse today than we have been in the past, we absolutely know we still have a lot of work to do in this space. As it is, I said, this is just a starting point, and we are so grateful to all of you who responded to the survey. Here are members of the committee, Brianna Keaton, Gabby Going, and Kayla Miner, to introduce you to another project that we have undertaken.
Brianna, I don't think we can hear you. Can you check your audio? I still can't hear you.
So here, Kimmy.
No.
That's weird.
Are we still not able to get Bree?
Oh no.
Brianna hears us, right?
Brianna, check
Again, I thought I heard her.
Brianna, check when you click the microphone and the source settings there for sound output. Still not hearing you.
We'll be darned.
Thanks to everyone who understands from a year and a half of being on Zoom. We'll work through this technical challenge quickly, and if not, then we can pivot. Sometimes I do to test your mic and speakers, but sometimes that helps me connect properly or reconnect. Well, maybe could we have Tandy start off
Yes,
this
yeah,
first part?
I'll continue. Okay, I wish you could hear Brianna's voice. We were charged with creating a diversity, equity, and inclusion toolkit to strengthen collegiate chapters and their activism within the DEI space and to externally indicate their embrace of DEI. Our committee is very excited to roll out the toolkit to you today. Over the past year, we have vetted a variety of mediums to assist chapters in addressing topics of diversity, equity, inclusion on their campuses. And we also know that media changes quickly over time. So you will find that new movies, podcasts, programs, etc., will always be added.
The toolkit is divided into 6 segments: websites, books, websites and book list, podcast, movie list, and TV shows. We hope that you will find these useful as you program for your chapter this year.
This is a vast assortment of tools, and just like a set of carpentry tools or mechanics tools, you don't use them all at once. You use them in a planful way for a specific use.
So for instance, if you want your chapter to have a DEI discussion at your upcoming chapter retreat next month, you might locate a quick TV show episode for everyone to watch together and discuss.
Or let's say you're leading your chapter's committee to assist a DEI initiative on your campus. You might want to ask each of your committee members to listen to a podcast independently and then reflect on it together.
I speak for all of us on the committee that we would be very happy to talk to you about any strategies or uses of this toolkit. We do plan to update it quarterly, and we certainly welcome your suggestions for additional resources to be added. If you do have resources that you think would be a great add to our toolkit, please feel free to send those to mortarboard@mortarboard.org, or you could even put them in the chat right now. To answer Tamika's question in the chat, you can find the toolkit at mortarboard.org under the resources tab, and I believe there will be a link that is put in the chat.
Have we had a chance to go through there? All right. Before we get to questions, I would like just to take a moment to let everyone know about the Mortarboard Alumni Association Book Club's latest book. And I actually happen to have it here because I've already read it when it first came out. The MBAA will be discussing Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad at their September meeting. The winner of the Pulitzer Prize has been, this winner of the Pulitzer Prize has been called an American masterpiece that will question our assumptions about our shared history. So I highly recommend it. Even if you don't come to the book club, read the book. So we have a couple minutes for questions. So I want to first open it up to the chat. I know there were some questions on that was on Whova, so we can get to those as well. Any questions in the chat? Okay, then let's look at the question that came to us. It says, how might Mortarboard think differently about selections and recruitment to reflect our DEI mission? It occurs, an organization that has a selections process might need to be very intentional about not perpetuating unconscious bias and promoting affirmative recruitment. And I think that is a great question. And Jane, I believe that Mortarboard is moving towards a nomination process nationwide. Has that been shared with chapters yet?
Yes, we're in the process of sharing it with chapters and urging chapters that are not using a nomination process to spread the word about Mortarboard and get members nominated from all across campus to get started this year on that. And the chapter action plan has some information about how to do that, and section coordinators will be helping chapters to change from simple applications to nominations. It's more work initially, but over the years, it will become very helpful to Mortarboard and include all the campus in getting nominations for members so that we don't end up just being a group of a few people who knew the people the year before.
That is correct. I think this is going to take time, and we really encourage chapters to start. One of the best ways you can do that is start building relationships across campus with offices and organizations. And I really challenge the chapters to really, you want your mortarboard chapters to reflect the campus population. So that is really critical. And I think also challenging you to look at leadership in a new light as well. You know, leadership is not just a title, it's an activity, it's an action. So look across the campus and the community, who is out there really taking these leadership roles with their actions and their activities, because leadership does not look the same across the board. Are there any other questions? There was another question from Huva. I cannot see it right now. Jane, can you see I know there were two questions.
I see it, Candy. I'm happy to share.
Okay,
I think it's
Great,
this
thanks, Kate.
how do you see the equity portion of DEI being executed in order to promote intentional diversity within our organization?
Anybody on the committee want to address this? I have a few thoughts as well, but we've got great committee members. So Gabby or Kayla, I agree. Do we have you able to chime in?
I would chime in really quickly, and Candy, please follow up with your thoughts because I know you are a wealth of knowledge in this area. But I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that I believe this question was from Margaret, and I'm really excited to have her on board in this space next year alongside me because I think she's going to be a valuable voice at the table too. But for me, I think it goes back to something she said in her student rep candidate speech, that equity and equality is different. And as a committee, we certainly recognize that every chapter is at a different point in their journey within this topic. And I think the toolkit addresses each of those different stages. So for instance, there might be some chapters who are very comfortable around this topic, already participating in workshops and speakers and making this a primary focus, whereas some other chapters might be less familiar with it, and we are certainly equipping each chapter with the skills and resources that they need no matter where they are at in the journey.
Thanks, Kayla. Yes, and I really like when Margaret addressed the difference between equality and equity. And there is a great, I wish I had access to it, but there was a great illustration online that showed the difference between equality and equity. That's really pretty easy to understand. It showed three individuals looking over a fence to watch a baseball game, I think it was. And they were all given the same box to stand on. And obviously, when you look at the picture, one person had no trouble seeing what was going on, two other people did not. So in the next picture, that was a demonstration of equity, they were given different levels of boxes to stand on. One person actually didn't need the box, and one person needed a higher box, and another needed a box that was not quite as high, but it still gave them equal access to seeing the ball game. So their needs were met. So like Kayla said, each chapter is at a different part of your journey. We really encourage you to look at all the resources in the toolkit. There's a lot of links. It takes a lot of time. I think one of the best links is the 21-day plan. That is in Eddie Moore Jr.'s website. I think it's one of the first ones listed. They give you step-by-step things to do, even if you have a short time, if you have a long time, what to listen, what to watch. There's even an activity list of things to do. So I think as you go about your membership selection next year, you really, first of all, educate yourself and then reach out to people to help you in the process. Are there any questions that have come up in the chat? All right, then the next thing we want to avail is Mortarboard's first DEI award.
The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award is patterned after our Project of Excellence Awards, so many chapters could earn this award over the next year.
In your chapter action plan, you probably have already noticed a section for DEI planning. The DEI award will be based on how well you operationalize your plans. We're really excited about Mortarboard chapters all completing DEI programming this year and receiving a DEI award.
So we are really interested in your reaction to this DEI award. Could some of you enter your thoughts into the chat or use your emojis to let you know what you think of this brand new award from Mortarboard? Thanks, Tamika. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Patience. Great to see these comments. Sarah, Hannah. Thanks, Linda. If there are no further questions right now, we will go on. We really want to thank you for your interest in DEI, and I love the students' recommendations as well. I can see that that is really first and foremost on their agenda going forward into the future. We're here to support your chapters in your efforts as you travel the DEI journey together. And it is a journey, it's a process. You're going to make great strides and you're going to have steps backwards, but don't lose hope and reach out to us if we can help you in any way. We're really excited to see what chapters are going to do this year. You all have amazing futures ahead. Thank you. Katie, back to you.
Thank you so much, Candy and DEI committee. We have been so proud of the work you've done this year. Next, I want to introduce our student representatives from 2020-2021. They've been working hard to make communication easier for our collegiate members of Mortarboard, and they're here to share more information with each of you. Brendan Wall and Kayla Miner, thank you for your commitment to always raising the student voice and perspective during your time as student representatives on council. Your ideas are inspiring, and I look forward to hearing what you'll be sharing with us today.
Thank you, Katie. As Katie said, and as you might be familiar with, I'm Kayla Miner, and I'm joined today by my counterpart who just ended his term, Brendan Wall. The two of us want to share with you an initiative that the two of us have been working on over the past year of our service. So as your student reps, we have certainly recognized that a new form of communication is needed to be established to ensure that our chapters and our members have an easy and quick access to any member across the country, national leadership, or the national office. So after a year of planning, we are so excited to introduce to you Slack for Mortarboard. So before we get into the heat of things, I want to kind of take a pause and have our Arden Solutions pull up the poll that we created. We just want to see if everyone is familiar with Slack or your experience level with Slack up to this point.
Give me just 1 second, Kayla.
No problem.
Apologize that got it's not letting me.
How about instead of a poll, why don't we just use emoji reaction? So let's use a heart if you have used Slack before, use a thumbs up if you know of Slack, and use the little open mouth emoji if this is the first time you've ever heard of it.
Seeing a lot of hearts in the chat. That's great.
Yes, and a few, kind of a large diversity of our members and are familiar with Slack. So thank you for sharing that. And we'll go ahead and kick it off then by introducing those of you who are familiar with Slack, just giving you a quick overview of what that is. So we're going to throw it over to Slack themselves to introduce the platform for you.
Slack is the best way to collaborate online with your team, just as easily as you do in person, no matter where you are. Communication in Slack happens in channels, virtual spaces where you can share information with everyone working on a project, keeping your work organized, focused, and moving forward. Direct messages let you have private conversations without having to meet in person. When your work happens in channels, files and conversations are searchable across departments, time zones, and functions. Slack brings the right people and information together, helping everyone communicate, connect, and get their work done more quickly. Slack, where work happens.
We know that as students ourselves, you guys probably get 1,000 emails a day. Likely it's your school's latest COVID-19 update, along with all the other clubs and involvement and activities that you're doing on campus, and then the latest emails from Blackboard or Canvas about the classes you're in. We wanted to delineate the conversation about Mortarboard to not just being another email that you receive every day, but rather to be an ongoing and dynamic conversation that is occurring. So we envision Slack being used by not only our national council members, it's been well embraced by the national office staff already, but also your section coordinators, you, the student collegiate members, and then our alumni members as well. We hope that Slack can be a place for conversation after conference that we've already seen in the Whova app and here in Zoom to continue throughout the year. And I noticed that it's something that the Recommendation and Resolutions Committee had already mentioned that they wanted to implement. So it was very timely that it was something we were planning on unveiling to you all today. Our Slack will consist of multiple channels, which will be primarily a general channel, which is going to be your location for any Mortarboard specific question. So previously, Slack has consisted of a lot of, or our emails have existed where if you have a question about Mortarboard, you're essentially emailing the mortarboard.org, and the Mortarboard office will then subdivide all those communications and get it to the right person. We want to eliminate that kind of communication where now if you have a question, you can just pose it in the general channel and someone, whether that's a fellow collegiate member or a national office staff member, can get back to you right away. And it's a lot faster and a lot easier to start conversations. There will also be social channels, which have already been embraced by the staff for Friday gifts, but also just more friendly conversations that maybe aren't business related, but are still, community conversations that you want to have. And then there will also be section-based channels. This will be a private location for the chapter leaders in your section and your SCs to communicate maybe section-specific information, as well as a place for you to organize together as section leaders if you want to do inter-chapter events with one another. And then finally, what we think is maybe one of the most important channels is going to be the student reps channel. And that channel is going to exist solely for you all to communicate with your student representative, Kayla Miner and Margaret. They plan on doing more programming in that channel, and it's a great place. If you have a question that you want to ask or pose to them specifically, they are there for you in that channel, and we're designed to support you all, and we want to have increased communication with you. So that is our goal by using that channel. I'll throw it back over to Kayla to explain the direct messaging component.
Yeah, and before I get there, I would say I've seen 2 great examples of channels that we can add to, so a DEI channel or an advisor channel. So certainly feel free to always bring up your suggestions of how to improve Slack so that we can kind of continue that initiative in those channels as well. So as for direct messaging, this is also another way to communicate with other members of the Slack. I will assume that you are all familiar with DMs, but as an example, please know that you can always reach out to your student reps, myself, and now Margaret, with any questions, concerns, or just to say hi by using Slack. But this is also a good way to, if you have a question about a report, you can DM Brooke or at the national office, or get a hold of somebody at the national office if you have any questions, or if you've made a really great connection with another chapter collegiate member here at conference, you can continue that conversation in Slack as well. So with that, we will switch over to our charge for you. Here's a QR code with our link to join Slack. This is how attendance will be taken for this session. So please scan that QR code or follow the link that Brooke just dropped in the chat. By you joining Slack, that is how we will mark down that you are here. I also want to note that the Slack isn't only available to those who are attending conference, so please feel free to take this back to your own chapters and encourage them to use Slack and get on the national office Slack or national organization Slack as well, because anybody can have access to this tool, and we want as many people to have access as possible. So is Slack only an app? No, sorry, I do keep calling it an app, but that is a great point, Brooke. So you can download Slack as an app on your phone, I know my MacBook has an app for Slack as well, but I actually tend to use it on the web browser for my computer. So if you just click that link even, it'll take you directly to the web, to the browser portion of Slack. I see a lot of people are joining. Tamika's here. Awesome.
So we welcome you all to continue the conversation and the friendships that you may have formed while here at conference in Slack, and we hope it'll be a tool that you can use throughout the year to stay in contact with us. So the conversation does not end today. If anyone has any questions or suggestions on the implementation of Slack, we would definitely welcome those now. I think we have a minute or two for that.
I see a lot of great feedback and tips in the chat, so thank you to everyone who is helping to assist. Like Wilson's call out, yes, a lot of companies are using Slack for their sources of communication. So as you kind of gear up to head out to the real world, as I call it, Slack, being familiar with that will certainly prove beneficial.
Kayla and Brendan, and maybe this is also a question for Brooke. Kaylee had asked if all this information to sign up for Slack will be sent out in an email or some sort to all chapter members. So I don't know if actually that might be more of a Brooke question and maybe a leading leaders, but just wanted to ask that to the group.
It absolutely will be. Thanks for bringing that up, Kaylee. We'll be pushing it out in the next couple of leading leaders, so keep on your email for that, and in some of our post-conference information. It will also be shared at your region meeting directly after this, so make sure you go there too.
Great question, Kaylee. Are there any other questions? Well, if you do have questions that arise, please feel free to ask us in Slack, or if you are unable to get there after this session, you can always go back to the email and we'll get you set up. So with that, I think we will kick it back over to Katie.
Thank you so much. I am so encouraged by the use of Slack for Mortarboard as a way for us to keep the connections building. Professionally, I've used Slack at several organizations or an iteration of it like Microsoft Teams. So I agree that it helps all of us prepare for maybe that way of communication in our jobs after our collegiate experiences as well. Connection building has been an important part of this conference and my own personal Mortarboard journey. Another part of our strategic plan that we wanted to focus on in this session was rebranding Mortarboard and having a new, more user-friendly website in place before the conference. I'm thrilled to say that we achieved that goal. And to talk about this work is the chair of the Ad Hoc Branding Committee, Leslie Ellis, our outstanding section coordinator who was initiated at Lenore Ryan University. Leslie has played a major leadership role in Mortarboard as a strategic planner, a committee chair, and section coordinator all at the same time this past year. And I look forward to hearing what you'll be sharing with the delegation.
Thanks so much, Katie. I have been so proud to chair the branding committee, which has spirited wonderful discussions all year long. I want to acknowledge that all of the branding work, from the selection of the branding committee to the updating of every single word on the website, is due to the amazing staff at Mortarboard, led by Jane Hamblin. Brooke Stiles, Kara Lisenby, and Lexi Beer worked around the clock on the rollout of the site, and we are so appreciative for all of their work. It is important also that we acknowledge the branding company that we worked with on this project, Orgo Branding Company, which is based in Columbus, Ohio. The Mortarboard National Foundation also provided all of the funding for this 8-month project, and all of us are very thankful for that. So thank you to Marty and the trustees for your support and backing us in this important initiative. I'm also very appreciative to all of our committee members who really stuck with our work all year long. You can see the names on this slide. We had a really great committee and their skills were very much appreciated. I'm now going to pass it over to Cheryl Gunter, who was initiated at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, who will tell us about the start of our process.
Thank you very much, Leslie. We participated heavily in the research and analysis portion of Mortarboard's brand revision. An extensive survey included members and non-members who reviewed the website and made suggestions and comments about it. The survey showed that Mortarboard should showcase these items: a sense of community, lifelong engagement and connections, and the impact that Mortarboard can make on campuses and in the communities where these campuses are located. We had a lot of recommendations for the website, from the color palette to the look and the feel. We examined wireframes and different looks. And by January, we had the same stakeholders who had been surveyed earlier view two different concepts, and one concept rose to the top. Now, here is Bob Madsen, who became a Mortarboard member at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, to take our story a little further.
Hello, everyone. Go Gophers. So related to this concept development was the development of a new logo lockup. Our committee reviewed 3 logos designed by the branding committee, and we gave our feedback. It turned out that we were not completely satisfied with our first choice, and we ended up asking Origo, the branding company, to revise further. So the 4th logo lockup came up with a fit of everything we were looking for. So take a look.
Our committee is so pleased with the final logo, as well as the way that the website turned out. On our website, we have demonstrations of the logo and the brand and other brand elements that chapters can use. So be sure to take a look at that. There's the brand style guide and all the digital downloads, so you can make sure you're using the correct logo moving forward. As you review the website, you will also notice one thing, something we are particularly proud of, and that is that all of the photos are our own. We will continue to update photos on the website, and we urge you and other chapter members to post your photos on your own social media pages and make sure you tag Mortarboard so we can highlight you in this new website and on our social media moving forward. Back to you, Katie.
Thank you so much, Leslie and the branding committee. Before I officially wrap up, I just heard that Brianna Keaton sound is back on, and so I wanted to give her just a couple minutes to share reflections from her work on the D.
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Sarah, hey.
Yay, all right. My apologies, I just wanted to apologize about my computer audio. Not sure what happened, but really just wanted to talk about everything that we've been working on with the DEI committee, everything that has been worked on as far as Slack and all that, our student representatives have put together, our branding recognition and so many things. Ultimately, it really just draws down to one word, and that word being belonging. I think that that's really important and critical for students, advisors, for everyone to understand that a sense of belonging is critical for us to reach our framework as well as our mission for Mortarboard. And remember, when it comes down to a sense of belonging and we talk about DEI, sometimes those can come across as buzzwords. But please remember, and I'd like to echo Candy again, that this is all about action. And a sense of belonging truly means that someone feels that they have been invited, welcomed, and included. All 3 of those have to exist in order for someone to feel that sense of belonging. So for example, if I invited Leslie, I'm gonna pick on you, Leslie, if I invited her to a party and I said, Leslie, you can come to the party, we would love to have you there. That's the initial invite. But if she shows up and when she knocks on that door and we open it, she doesn't feel welcomed, and then she doesn't feel included, then Leslie's not gonna feel that sense of belonging. And so when she comes to that door, we have to welcome her and bring her around and introduce her to other people. And then the including part may be me asking Leslie to dance with me on the dance floor, and we're just going to have a good time because this is our favorite song. So I really want to reiterate that, and really tying it back into DEI, if inclusion is the practice and diversity is the framework, and equity is our goal, then a sense of belonging is when all three of those elements factor together. So just remember the ABCs of belonging and a sense of connectedness, and that truly is to act, that is to belong, and that is to commit. When you act, you're doing something. When you belong, you're doing something with someone. And when you are committing, you're doing something meaningful. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you so much. And we're so happy to have you all for Mortarboard National Conference 2021.
Bree, thank you so much for that. And I hope you have a minute to check the chat because you got a lot of love. And I specifically wanted to say, just since the first day, you've been really challenging Mortarboard to put our values into action and focus on belonging. I remember when you talked about ways we can make our conference more inclusive, and just the fact that the work you've done and the whole committee has done to do that, I think is making that more of a reality. I know we all have a role to play there. And so if I think about the first part of conference, when David Coleman said, set a goal for yourself or an aspiration, I want to challenge each of us to do that as we go out into the world after conference. Collegiate members, you still have one more section meeting after this, but if you want to put your affirmation or aspiration in the chat so we can capture that, I'd love to see what are those things that you're going to commit to after this weekend where you've learned more about Mortarboard. And if someone is having a heart calling and wants to actually share it out loud, we are running slightly ahead of schedule. And so we could maybe take 1 or 2 people to come off mute if you'd like. Looks like we have a phone participant with a 702 number that has a hand raised. If that means you wanted to say something out loud, if you want to come off mute, that's great. Maybe that was just an excited affirmation to what Bree had shared. But if anyone wants to put things in the chat that you're taking away as a commitment, going back to your chapter or alumni, back to your roles in Mortarboard or your communities, I'd love to see that so we can capture some of those things as inspiration for us all in the year ahead.
Well, I wrote in the chat that I am abundant and a curious leader because I know that there's always more things to learn and to be very collaborative.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for kicking that off and for sharing. Anyone else feel so compelled to come off mute and share a little bit? Sarah Beth?
Yeah, something that I would love to commit to doing is increasing Mortarboard's presence on campus at my university.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I see there's something about reaching out to the entire campus for nominations. That's wonderful. And leading our chapter with empathy and increased visibility. And I just say for anyone who didn't get to go to the chapter ops session on leading with empathy, those recordings will be available on the website. And it was a really impactful discussion. And I'd encourage you to check that out and any other sessions that couldn't make because you couldn't be in 2 or 3 places at once. Being a better leader, I think that is such an important part of any role in Mortarboard, and hopefully you'll find so many lessons that you'll learn this year as collegiate members on how to do that and bring that into the workforce afterwards. More members from a diverse group across campus. I love that.
I would say maybe building like, I'm so sorry, I did not raise my hand. I'm so used to being on Zoom and just mute and unmute. I so
Go ahead, Gabby, you got it.
But I would say, you know, building the presence of Mortarboard and like the community of Mortarboard in Chicago, because that's where I am. And so, well, if anyone is here, you're in Chicago, hey, find me on Slack. But no, really, you know, so we can actually, like, whoever can, you know, be able to meet up and to also have that spread out across the different, you know, chapters and cities as well, where we do have our members. I think that would be like a great experience to network more and get to learn more about each other.
I love that. I love that. Regional Slacks, that's such a great idea. I think there's so many things that we can do with that. Anything else? I'll give us a couple more seconds in case people wanted to step. All right, we'll keep the ideas coming, share them in Slack, share them in this chat. But I just do want to thank both of the committees that we heard from, our DEI and branding committees, for all of your hard work to make our vision a reality. And also, I have to really thank Kayla and Brendan for all of the work that you've done to increase our communication across our national footprint and push us to be more in the 21st century with that as well. When a group of national leaders got together in Chicago in January 2020, little did we know the challenges we'd face in the year ahead, and your perseverance and persistence have established a firm foundation for Mortarboard in our second century and in this transformational strategic plan that Cass shared with us in the last meeting. So before I send you off to the final section meeting of the conference, I just want to take a moment and thank each of you for giving your time and your talents this weekend. It is hard to be all in a virtual meeting that's an hour sometimes, let alone the 3 days of programming that we've had. But the energy has been electric, and you all have really brought your full selves to this experience. And I thank you so much. I hope that each of you is leaving with a renewed sense of purpose and passion for the work you're doing to live our ideals of scholarship, leadership, service, and equity. I hope you've made connections with board members across the country, been inspired with new ideas for chapter operations, and thought about what your lifelong Mortarboard impact can be. I know this year will come with its own unique set of challenges, but I believe more than ever that as Mortarboards, we can continue to build community and make connections that will change the world. So onward to great things.